Hi, I'm Lisa Nichols, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use the computer program MestReNova, which is a program used for processing NMR spectra. What that means is taking the file that the instrument gives you and loading it and editing it, adding peak frequencies, adding integrations, zooming in however you like, and that sort of thing. So the first thing you would do is find your computer file, and it can either be an FID file or a JDX file. And you'll take that file and you'll drag it into the program. Let me try again. There we go, and then that loads it. So the spectrum that I'm going to use as an example is phenylethanol. Let me show you the structure of that. So phenylethanol has some aromatic signals, that's these over at 7 to 8. Then we have two CH2s, that's these two. And then we have the OH signal, and that's this one over here. Okay. All right, so let me just kind of show you how you would make this pretty. Okay, and then using the program as well. So on the right side, we have some zoom buttons, and so you can click on the zoom in button, and your cursor, try again, your cursor should change to a magnifying glass with a plus. You would then click on one side, drag to the other side, it highlights it in pink. When you let go, that's the area that it'll zoom in on. To go back or to zoom out, you can do the zoom out and you can click on the middle. Or, let me zoom in again. Something that I think is possibly more useful is clicking on this button, this one right here. It says full spectrum. If you hover over a tool, it'll like tell you what it says. And I know that this is off screen, it just says full, but it really says full spectrum. And so if you click on that, you'll go back to the original, like the completely zoomed out version, and then you could go back in and zoom it however you like. Another thing to know about this program is that it stays in a tool unless you unselect it. So notice I'm in the zoom right now, and you see on the tool it's highlighted. So if I wanted to do other things, it won't let me because I'm going to still be in the zoom mode. So you'd want to unselect the zoom mode to get like a normal cursor again, and then you could do other things. Okay, so on the right, there's also this toolbar area right here, which is useful for changing the height of signals. So at the bottom, this is a manually make things smaller or manually make things bigger. So this makes it smaller. And then this one up here is an auto fit to height. So when you click that, you're going to make the tallest peak in the spectrum all the way to the top. So it fits it to the page. Okay, all right, and that's those buttons. So the next thing that you probably want to do are mark the frequencies of each of these things. So up here on the top left, there's a thing say auto, or they're peak picking. So you don't want to do any of the automated ones. It messes it up pretty much all the time. So instead you're going to use these smaller buttons here that do it manually. So I would hover over this one, it says manual threshold, and I would use that one. So I click on that, my cursor is different, notice, and then you would go to a signal, and this is a triplet, right? And so what I'm going to do is I click on the left, I drag over to the right, and notice I'm highlighting, 3 peaks. Then when I let go, it's going to mark those 3 peaks up above. So these are the frequencies. Okay, and the threshold really just means like a line. It'll mark anything that's above that line. So I would do the same thing over here. There's my 1 peak. And then over here, this is a triplet. Here it actually marks 4 peaks. So you definitely don't want to, do this really low because it's going to mark any of the junk in the bottom. Look at all that. So now's actually probably a good time to tell you about the undo button as well. If you make a mistake, up in the top left, there's a little red backwards arrow, undo. Do undo and you'll go back. But just kind of notice how the peak picking is working. It's you mark anything above a certain line, which is why you don't go to the bottom with all this little junk stuff, And so this one is supposed to be a triplet, but there are actually 4 things that are marked. So if that happens, if you wanted to fix it, there's a way to do that. Why don't I first zoom in on that signal? Yeah, so you see that we're marking like, this is just supposed to be one line, but gosh, actually if we zoom in more, looks like they're all a little bit a little bit not perfect, you know. But this one especially is marking 2, so I don't want to mark that little shoulder. So what you would do is delete it, and up here, this one that says X, delete manually, you click on that, and then you would click drag, and then it highlights it in purple, and when you let go, that's the one it's going to delete. So that's like taking away the peak picking. Okay, let's do full spectrum again, and we'll zoom in on our area. Looks good. I'm going to go back and do the aromatic stuff over here. So if I go too low, I'm going to get a lot of signals. Whoa, that's quite a bit. I'm not going to need to know all of those, am I? So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to just mark it, you know, raise it up a bit higher and only mark a few, because at least then I'll know like where the numbers are showing up. Also notice that I've got this title up here. I actually don't know how to get rid of that, but if your peaks are obscured by the title, I do know how to work around it, and you can just lower the peaks. So let me get out of this mode. You see how I'm still in the, you know, peak picking mode. Kind of get out, I get a normal cursor, and then if you hover over one of those peaks and it's highlighted in pink, you can actually do it anywhere, like how it over here. And then if you lower it, then you make it where they're not like covered up. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So there are our frequencies are labeled. Looks good. The next thing you want to do is integrate. So you want to know how many H's each of these signals is worth. You do that here. Again, I would not do auto integration. Integration, it really just messes up every time. So you're going to do it manually. So you click on this one, manual, and then this is again like a drag situation. You see we've got the little integral symbol. So you're going to click on one side, drag over to that side, let go, and then it's going to integrate it, and it puts those integrations underneath. Okay, you do that for each of the signals. So let's go over here. That one, and that one. Okay, so the integrations are showing up underneath, and it just shows the integrations relative to each other, and it automatically just chooses one of them as 1. So, and let me get out of this. This is not worth 1, is it? This is worth 5. So it's showing the wrong integration. And so what you want to do is change some of them and make it what they really stand for. So why don't we set the integrations on this CH2 or this one? I mean, they're the same, but that should be worth 2, right? Okay, so what you would do is you go down and you want to either click on it down here or you click on it up here, this little stair-steppy, either way, but you double click and then this shows up, and then it's in this normalized button. This is where you type in how many H's it's really worth. So in this case it's 2, we push enter, and then it changes all of them relative to that. Okay, you can X this out to go back. So I know it's quite small, but right now it's reading 2, 2, 4.6. Well, so that's the other thing. Integrations are measured values, and so you have to take them with a grain of salt. There's rounding that has to occur, but 4.6 is pretty close to 5. So I think that works pretty well. And then over here, my OH peak says 1.4. Again, we have to think about rounding, so that, I mean, it's close-ish to 1 for the OH. Okay. All right, I think we're doing pretty good. So you may not have been able to see the numbers very well. I think I'm going to make them a little bigger. So what I next want to do is go to make these larger. Just the font is kind of small. So I would go to Edit, way up here, and Properties. So if you don't see that, if it's unhighlighted, it's just because you have to highlight the spectrum. So you click on this, and then you're able to go Edit, Properties. Okay, this thing shows up. You go over here to Peaks, and then here you can change the font. And I mean, you can do whatever you want here, but if you just want to not have to think about it, because some of them are super weird, I would just do Verdana. Oops, I skipped it, didn't I? Where is it? Verdana 7. And that works pretty good. I push OK. So the other thing I want to do is change the decimals. So the default is going to be 2. I want to increase that to 3. So, and that's for calculating J's, you have to have 3 decimal places. All right, while we're at it, let's go to the integrals, and I also think the font was small there. So let me go to here, font, and we'll do the same thing. Let's go to Verdana, where is that? There it is, 7, okay. And now if I push OK, yeah, all the numbers got slightly bigger. It also changed the location here, so let's drag that down again so it doesn't interfere with the title. Okay, I think it's looking pretty good. So the next thing I would do is I like to put a title on it. So you can go under Edit, Annotate, Text, just make a text box. You can either drag one or you can just start typing. So here I would go phenylethanol. And it's nice to also say what strength of the instrument you use, 300 megahertz for this one. Okay. And then afterwards, if you highlight this text box, this can also be like dragged around. And you can also change, I don't know if you have to highlight that first, but you can change this, the font and all that stuff. That's under Home. Over here, why don't we stick with our Verdana? Not that it matters. Oops. This one. And I'll make that slightly bigger. Oh, and I'll make it centered. Okay. And maybe that looks good. Okay. All right, very good. So I think that's all I would need to do. I think I would be ready for printing. So I also really recommend that you save it. So go File, Save As, oops, and we'll just save it on my desktop, Lisa, just because if you push save, if you do have to edit any of this, like if you forgot to do the 3 decimals, you only did 2, it'd be a shame if you had to redo everything, right? So then if you save it, you just can come in and make those quick changes and fix it. You can also then print it, or you can do export to PDF to save it, but otherwise you'd be done. So the when you use the print function, it's going to print exactly what is shown here. So if you wanted to have zoom in, you would, print it big, and then you could also like zoom in on certain areas. Like if you wanted to then go and highlight the aromatic region for some reason, then you could zoom in, and if you do file print, it'll print that.